The winds whispered through the broken hedgerows as Marianne Foyster stepped out onto the gravel path of Borley Rectory. She had lived there long enough to feel its weight, an unseen pressure that tightened around her chest each time she climbed the stairs alone. The sounds began again that morning, faint at first, tapping on the walls, bells that rang from no visible cord. The air had turned cold, unnaturally so, but what unsettled her most was the writing. She stared at it, heart pounding, knowing she had locked that room the night before. This wasn't the first time the house had spoken to her, and it would not be the last. Borley Rectory, often dubbed the most haunted house in England, was built in 1862 in the village of Borley, Essex. Constructed on the site of an older rectory destroyed by fire, the structure quickly gained a reputation for unexplained activity. The hauntings began in earnest after the arrival of the Bull family, particularly the Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull. Unusual sightings, including ghostly nuns and poltergeist activity, were recorded throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The rectory was eventually damaged by fire in 1939 and demolished in 1944. Reverend Henry Bull's family lived in the rectory for many years, during which several unexplained occurrences were reported, including footsteps, whispering voices, and objects moving of their own accord. It was after his death in 1892 that activity intensified. His son, Reverend Harry Bull, also witnessed phenomena and reportedly built a summer house facing the garden path, so the ghostly nun could be more easily observed. In 1928, the rectory became front-page news after an article in the Daily Mirror reported on sightings and invited the famed paranormal researcher Harry Price to investigate. Price's involvement brought Borley national attention and helped solidify its place in England's paranormal folklore. Even after its demolition in 1944, stories persisted, especially when locals claimed they continued to see figures walking the ruins. One of the most famous incidents involved the supposed apparition of a nun, seen frequently on the grounds and through the windows. In one instance, a group of visitors observed the figure moving silently along a garden path. Another notable event occurred when the Rev. Lionel Foyster and his wife Marianne moved in during the 1930s. Marianne claimed she was slapped, scratched, and locked in rooms by unseen forces, and a number of spontaneous writings appeared on walls. The nun apparition is by far the most enduring story. Legend has it that she was a French nun who attempted to elope with a monk from a nearby monastery. They were caught, and she was bricked up alive within the convent's walls. Though this narrative lacks historical corroboration, it aligns with reports from dozens of witnesses who claimed to see her floating silently across the grounds. Equally unnerving were the ghostly messages that appeared on walls during the Foyster residency, often addressed to Marianne and written in shaky scrawl. These writings were widely photographed and studied, although skeptics argued they were fabricated. Another significant event was the sighting of a headless man in a study and a phantom coach driven by a headless horseman. Both reported by multiple guests over the years, Marianne Foyster was perhaps the most prominent witness, providing first-hand accounts of physical attacks and interactive communication from the spirits. Reverend Lionel Foyster kept a diary of the events, documenting dozens of incidents ranging from bells ringing without cause to poltergeist disturbances. Harry Price, a famous psychical researcher, later leased the property in 1937 to conduct formal investigations and published 2 books on the subject. Marianne Foyster later admitted to exaggerating some elements of her story, but insisted that several events were genuine and unexplainable. She reported hearing disembodied voices calling her name, being locked in rooms from the outside, and once feeling a cold hand press against her back in an empty hallway. Harry Price conducted overnight vigils with a rotating team of volunteers, many of them university students and professionals, who documented dozens of incidents including tapping sounds, phantom footsteps, and objects moving without human interaction. Other witnesses include previous rector's family members, housekeepers, and parishioners who claimed experiences ranging from fleeting shadows to extreme cold zones and even temporary paralysis. In one case, a maid allegedly fled the building after seeing a robed figure disappear into a wall. Despite Price's polarizing reputation, his collected witness logs remain one of the largest data sets of anecdotal haunting experiences from a single site in the UK. Investigators reported psychological distress, fear, and confusion. Some, including domestic staff, left abruptly after experiencing intense phenomena. Others became obsessed with the mystery. Marianne Foyster later recanted parts of her story. Although many events remain unexplained, some individuals who stayed at Borley Rectory reported long-term psychological impacts, including anxiety, sleep disturbances, and aversions to darkness or silence. Marianne Foyster's credibility suffered due to her conflicting statements, and she later moved abroad, reportedly trying to put the experience behind her. Harry Price, while bolstered by the fame the case brought, faced serious academic and media criticism. Mainstream science has been skeptical of Borley's reputation. Critics argue that many events could be explained by drafty construction, attention-seeking behaviour, or exaggeration. Harry Price was accused of fabricating or embellishing parts of his findings. Still, some evidence remains difficult to dismiss entirely. While no scientific body has validated the claims at Borley, the case continues to be used as a touchstone for understanding the belief in the paranormal. Most skeptical reviews point to mundane explanations: rats in the walls, faulty wiring, psychological priming, or outright hoaxing. Price was accused posthumously of stage managing certain events or failing to disclose contradictory evidence. In 1956, the Society for Psychical Research published a critique calling his methods questionable. However, a minority of scientists, especially those involved in parapsychology, have used Borley as an example of high-volume anecdotal consistency. They argue that even if 90% of the cases are explainable, the remaining anomalies deserve further study using emerging methods from environmental science, psychology, and instrumentation. Academics have studied Borley Rectory as an example of collective belief, media influence, and early paranormal tourism. The case highlights the intersection of folklore, journalism, and spiritualism during the interwar period. Is often referenced in sociology and psychology courses, dealing with mass suggestion and the evolution of modern ghost lore. Borley Rectory occupies an important position in British cultural studies. It is often explored in courses on Victorian and interwar spirituality, media sensationalism, and folklore transmission. The site serves as an example of how location-based legends evolve and are maintained through narrative, repetition, and media reinforcement. Historians have also examined Borley as part of the spiritualist movement that swept across England in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Sociologists note that the haunting coincided with shifts in religious authority and growing interest in scientific rationalism, suggesting the paranormal narrative functioned as a bridge between spiritual anxiety and modern skepticism. Borley is also used in studies on collective delusion and the influence of suggestion in shaping memory and shared experience. Borley Rectory's legend persists as a blend of historical oddity, supernatural claim, and media spectacle. Despite its demolition, the story remains influential in ghost hunting and paranormal investigation circles. Whether it was truly haunted or the product of suggestion and narrative shaping, Borley continues to inspire debate and curiosity. The Borley Rectory saga spans over 8 decades of public fascination, media attention, and academic inquiry. Its physical presence may be gone, but the legend thrives in documentaries, books, and paranormal television. It exemplifies how a location can transcend its material boundaries and become a mythos of its own. Whether viewed as a cautionary tale about belief, a genuine paranormal hotspot, or a social experiment in mass perception, Borley remains a pivotal case in British supernatural lore. Its legacy is one of blurred lines between reality and imagination, evidence and emotion, history and haunting. From a skeptical point of view, Borley may represent a perfect storm of environmental coincidence, personal motivation, and mass suggestion. Old houses are prone to unexplained noises, and many accounts surface during spiritualism's peak. Some believe Harry Price and others amplify the story to further careers or reputations. Critics argue that Borley Rectory's fame resulted not from genuine phenomena, but from a mixture of sensational journalism and opportunistic embellishment. The Daily Mirror and other tabloids amplified the mystery, often publishing exaggerated or unverified claims. Some suggest Marianne Foyster's reports were influenced by her unhappy marriage and desire for attention. Others posit that Harry Price, though a pioneer in psychical research, may have allowed personal ambition to compromise objectivity. Ultimately, Borley may be best understood not as a haunted location, but as a haunted narrative shaped by expectation, repetition, and the desire to believe in something beyond ourselves. Borley Rectory's case endures not because of proof, but because of how powerfully it touches on themes of death, the unknown, and our desire to connect with the beyond. Its mythology reflects a broader cultural moment in England's spiritual history, and whether real or imagined, it left a mark on all who encountered it. If Borley Rectory was truly haunted, it would represent one of the clearest cases of sustained supernatural activity ever documented. If not, it remains an incredible study in how stories take root, spread and persist. The witnesses, whether deceived, deceiving or truly experiencing something inexplicable, are central to this mystery. Borley raises deeper questions about human consciousness, memory and the need to assign meaning to the unexplained. Perhaps, in the end, its ghosts are less about spirits of the dead and more about the living, our fears, our hopes, and our hunger for connection beyond the veil.